What's up, everybody? You're very welcome along to another Late Night Agenda. And I thought I'd shake things up a little bit tonight by bringing on Mr. Steve Bland. And we'll have a chat around all things transfer related. You guys can put your questions to Steve or myself. And we'll go through, I think, Steve, how about we go through the most linked players to the club and we start from there?
Yeah, good shout, mate. A good shout. It's a silly season, isn't it, now upon us once again? So, yeah, plenty to talk about.
Yeah, there's different levels of silly season, though, isn't there? Really, like there's some people who won't be happy unless our starting lineup next season consists of MBAPPE and Haaland and Sancho.
Yeah, don't start. I mean, we come from a generation where it's been ridiculous, hasn't it? You know, you're going back Roberto Carlos, and going back a few years. I don't know. Yeah.
What I would say is the one that stung me.
I'm an old skeptic.
There was two that really hurt me, and it was around the time of Rafa. I would have given my right arm for David Silva at the time when Rafa was looking to bring him in. Do you remember? And David Villa, I think, as well, around the same time.
Yeah.
Oh man,
David Villa was consistently linked for probably 4 or 5 years, wasn't he? Seemed like a matter of when rather than if, and David Silva to a lesser degree, when he was at Valencia, and both of them, both of them would have been sensational, wouldn't they?
Ladies and gentlemen, before we get going tonight, and we've a lot to get through, I can see your comments already in the chat. I want to just respond to some. A lot of people have been sending me emails and messages worrying about not their dad bod so much for the beach in the summer, but they're worrying about how they're going to look in their budgie smugglers. But don't worry, folks. Uncle Craig's got you covered. You know where this is going, don't you? This Anfield Agenda show has been brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. When you're a follically challenged man like myself on the top of the head, you want to make sure that you take care of yourself below. If you haven't tried their Lawnmower 3.0 electric trimmer, you've been missing out. Their third-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to keep your nuts as smooth as my head. The battery alone lasts up to 90 minutes, unlike most of us. The kit also includes crop preserver, otherwise known as their ball deodorant. Yes, folks, I did say ball deodorant. It also comes with crop reviver, Manscaped's own ball toner. Sick of saggy balls? Use their ball toner and those days will be gone. They even added their shed travel bag and anti-chafing boxer briefs to complement not only their Perfect Package 3.0, but your perfect package as well. Let's get that bush to tush clean so you can be prepared at all times. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code WFM20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use our code WFM20. You too can be massive and your balls will thank you later. Steve, have your balls thanked you, mate? I never thought of asking you.
I mean, when you said come on the stream, you didn't say I was going to have to spend 2 minutes listening to you talk about your balls.
I'm transitioning, mate. We're going towards a beauty channel now. That's what bit by bit we're going to get there. I'll be reviewing makeup next. Wait and see. Look, ladies and gents, the one I think that we should get started with tonight, and thank you for bearing with me while we played the ad, by the way. I appreciate your support on that one. But the one that gets to me, and there's a couple of super chats I missed, so let me get to them. Because Philip Hunt said, must be a big summer to win the title of Champions League. City are in transition, so I think the title race is between us and Chelsea. And then another one said, your thoughts on the rumours that were leading the race for Rafinha? Imagine an attacking setup of DAKA, Salah, Jota, Bobby, Mane and Rafinha. I'll tell you what, Steve, he's transitioned that well for us there, Dylan, because two of those were names we were talking about. So I'll give you first. What do you want to talk about, Steve, DAKA or Rafinha?
Let's go Rafinha first, because I think I probably can talk a bit more about him because we've had a whole season of him, haven't we, at Leeds, seeing quite a bit of him. And I mean, it's impossible not to like what you see, isn't it? It looks like a real player, plenty of pace, a goal in him, creative, tricky, can play off either side. I like him. I like him a lot. We were talking before, weren't we, before we started the stream, about DAKA and about Rafinha. And they kind of fall into the category of players where we've kind of shopped at that level before. We've shopped at that level just below the top level. And you take a bit of a punt, don't you, with that level? Where we've had some big wins with Salah, Mane, Firmino. Coutinho going back a few years, where you're shopping just below the top level and you try and turn them into superstars, and it's worked. There's an element of gamble, isn't there? Because both DAKA and Rafinha, probably haven't played with the expectation and the pressure and all that, everything else that goes with playing for Liverpool. So, there'd be a bit of a gamble, but I like both of them. DAKA seems to make sense, but I think that's only me thinking that he's coming through the Red Bull Salzburg, route, which we've kind of harvested before a little bit. So, look, both of them, I think, would be really good players, and they'd undoubtedly improve the squad. Would they improve the first 11? Probably not.
Is that's an interesting point, Steve. I'm wondering what way we are going to be shopping this summer, because I see a couple of comments in the chat as well, and there is some truth to that about DAKA being strongly linked to West Ham. Obviously, Freddie Canute, I believe, represents Patson DAKA, and he has been linked to a few Premier League clubs, and West Ham have certainly been one of those. But I think one of the points I made to you, Steve, was that if we're in a summer where potentially we move on Divock Origi, it may be worth a punt then for DAKA at a similar price point that perhaps we get for Origi. But you make a very fair point about it is somewhat of a risk when you're shopping in that category.
And I think we were talking before, and you kind of mocked me before we came on air about
How
this.
How dare you, Sarah, suggest there's any bullying?
Well, I didn't say bullying. I think if you chuck Divock Origi into the Austrian league, he'd probably score a few goals as well. So I don't. Is DAKA a massive step up in terms of backup from Origi? It probably is a step up, but is he a massive step up? Probably not. DAKA might cost 17, 18 million pound we're talking about, and that's a sort of similar amount of money we're looking for Origi, isn't it? So, sorry, my dog's just going mental behind me. Can you see?
That's all right. He's having fun by the looks of it. Yeah. Happy dog.
Yeah. So they're just the signings that I think would be okay. Would they? Yeah, I'm a little bit like this. If we see City go big on Harry Kane, for example, if we see United go big on Sancho, Chelsea, Lukaku maybe, or Haaland, are we going to match them with DAKA and Rafinha? Probably not.
Would you agree with me? I made a point yesterday and I think I said this to you before we started as well. I get the feeling we're being set up for a summer of, well, there is money here, guys, but a lot of players with 2 years left on the contract, and we don't want to be letting Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane and Virgil van Dijk and so forth run down. We've got to tie them down. We need to learn the lessons from Raheem Sterling and those situations before. I just get the feeling, mate, we're going to be told to manage our expectations again.
Yeah, quite possibly. Been in this boat before, haven't we? Over the past few years, a few times. Yeah, quite possibly. I would hope not. There have been a few stories actually out this week. I've said on the Anfield Agenda podcast a few times that I don't necessarily see midfield as being a massive area where we need to add more bodies. And I think the Echo have said something similar, haven't they? That they're not seeing replacing Wijnaldum as being a massive priority, which I'm kind of on board with, because I think there's enough in there, and if
you're setting me up for it, mate. You're setting me up for what I was saying to you before the stream about we can get through one season.
I hadn't even thought that, but go on, share your theory. Go on.
So I'm all in for what you've said. I agree we could potentially get through another season with the midfield options that we have. I think there's 7 off the top of my head that we could look at. But maybe next summer, maybe a certain generational talent whose name rhymes with Schmellingham becomes available.
I mean, Schmellingham is one heck of a player, isn't he? He is sensational. I mean, you don't play more than 40 games for Dortmund at 17 if you're not something really, really, really special. And I think, what did they buy him for? 20 odd, 30 million or something. I mean, triple that and add a bit, quadruple that. right now if you're buying him now. Goodness knows if he has another year on his. I mean, if he has a good Euros, if he has another good season at Dortmund, you could be talking any amount of money for him, couldn't you? I mean, the people that run the coffers at Dortmund, with Haaland and Sancho and Bellingham in their side, must be absolutely rubbing their fingers together, because they, that's like 400 million of talent, isn't it? That's
a nice little niche they've carved themselves out there, isn't it? Of attracting the younger players and giving them a platform.
Incredible, but it shows you exactly why they go there. Why Sancho and Bellingham went there, doesn't it? Because, I mean, if Bellingham had signed for United, like they were pushing quite hard for him, probably a few other teams too. But if he'd signed for United, he might have got 10 games, a couple of like League Cup games, maybe a Europa League, Champions League, substitute appearance or something. But he wouldn't have got 40-odd games, 42 games or whatever it's been for Dortmund. There's just a lot more willingness in Germany to give these kids a chance, particularly at Dortmund, and you can completely understand why they go there. Sancho, left City and went straight, got the number 7 shirt at Dortmund when he was 16, 17. That told you exactly what their plan for him was. And I think even a sort of generational talent like Phil Foden, came through at City, having to bide his time till he was 19, 20 years old. And so it shows you the talent is there if you give him a chance. I think we've got one with Harvey Elliott, haven't we? That I think that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm more keen for us to look at like an alternative, like a number 9, a proper, someone different to Firmino. Elliott, for me, can come in and play 15, 20 games next year. Can be a decent, can be a genuine alternative off the bench, particularly. And I think he's that good. I know it was only at Blackburn this season, but I thought he was, the bits I saw were fantastic. And I think he's a really top player. So I think, if he went to Dortmund, he'd probably get 40 games, wouldn't he? And then come back and we'd be paying 150 million quid for him. So, give these young boys a chance, because, I think if you promote him, if you give Curtis Jones a few more games, if you put a bit of faith in Nico Williams as Trent's backup, then you don't need to cover those positions so well, and you can really focus on a couple of, Konate was important, but a couple of like really, 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 top quality additions that would genuinely improve the side.
I think that's a very fair point. And just to clear up for those in the chat, I'm in no way saying that Liverpool will be in for Jude Bellingham this summer. Not at all. Dortmund simply will not sell this summer for any amount of money, because, as Steve rightly said earlier on, they know that they're going to get Sancho money this summer. They know that they could get Haaland money. If not, they're certainly going to have Haaland money next summer. So, they'll be planning their business plan accordingly. So I'm in no way believing that it's going to be this summer. But for you, Steve, we spoke about a few names on the stream over the last week or so, names ranging from Houssem Aouar all the way to Vlahovic at Fiorentina, then of course gone to Rafinha, Pedro Neto. Anybody for you that you've seen maybe go under the radar, a name that you think might be worth a punt?
Well, one that I really like, and it's not really under the radar, but I'm a massive fan of Yuri Tielemans. Absolutely. I think he's fantastic. I think he's really, really, really fantastic. He can play as a sort of a 10, as a 6, as a sort of box-to-box number 8. He's creative. He scores. He'll probably give you 10 goals a season, which we know our midfield is, goalless, isn't it? They contributed, what was it, 1 or 2? Thiago got 1 and Oxlade-Chamberlain got 1 maybe.
Corner from a cross from an assist was the other.
So few goals there, wasn't it, from midfield, and it puts a lot of pressure on the front boys. And when Firmino and Mane maybe are off it like they were this season, that's when you lose. That's when you lose a few goals in a few games. So, Tielemans for me, I think would be, having said that I didn't think replacing Wijnaldum was a priority. Yuri Tielemans is the one that I just look at and I think, he'd be top class. I think he's fantastic.
The problem I see with Tielemans is that Leicester are very good about getting top dollar for anybody that they sell, because we all laud the ownership of Leicester and the way that they treat the fans and the club, and we've seen how much they got for Maguire. And I just wonder, and again I'm spitballing, maybe Yuri Tillmans thinks, all right, well, this is 2 seasons in a row now that Leicester have fallen just short of the Champions League. And as much as winning the FA Cup is brilliant for him, and I'm sure he appreciates it, he'll want to be playing the top level of European football.
100%. I think, I mean, like you've said it all. I think, they paid, he was massively highly rated, wasn't he? He went to France, and he was a really highly rated young player. Didn't quite work out for him, and he's ended up at Leicester, and he's proved to be just the player that everyone thought he would be. And what would it take to get him out of Leicester? You'd probably be looking at least what United paid for Maguire, wouldn't you? At least that sort of 70 odd million pounds. But then, we know clubs aren't exactly flush with cash at the moment. They've had a big hit. Leicester particularly have had a big hit because they will have probably been expecting to be in the Champions League given where they were. I just think, he'd probably have to agitate a bit for the move, wouldn't he? It's that kind of club where they'd want really top dollar unless he was proven a problem. And would he do that? I don't know. Maybe
doesn't
not.
Strike me as the type that would. To be fair,
no, he doesn't. But he's a really good player. I like him a lot. Yeah,
he's quality. And another name that people have been asking me a lot about, and I was in blissful ignorance till I watched the France under-21s in the Euro, is Kone from Lille. I don't know if you've seen much of this guy.
Yeah, I've seen bits and bobs. Lille have had a great season, haven't they? And he's been a big part of it. Again, that he falls into the same category, doesn't he? As we were talking before, you've got to take a bit of a punt on him. He's probably going to come in at 30, 40 million pounds, that kind of price. And, there's a bit of a risk involved. He might end up being an absolute world beater. Eden Hazard came from Lille, didn't he? And he was 30 odd million quid, and he turned out all right.
Just a poor man Salah, mate. That's all he is.
It's just, with Alisson and Van Dijk, we shopped at the top level, didn't we? We the guys at the club were like, right, who do we want in goal? We want that guy. Whatever it takes to get him, let's go and get him. And Van Dijk was the same. We waited a bit of time for him after the first move kind of fell apart. But it was him we wanted. We knew that he was the top man. Like, there is nobody in world football that was better than him at the time. So I like it when we do that, because that went quite well, didn't it? It's fair to say, buying those two boys in and Fabinho, went pretty well.
I suppose the caveat to that, though, Steve, is where that money came from. Of course, especially the first two you spoke about. Yeah,
of course. Particularly at the moment, it doesn't grow on trees, does it? We have to generate it from somewhere, and but it shows the value that you get when you do, or the value you can get when you really push the boat out and you go to the very top of the tree. And oh, sorry, my little boy's shouting me.
That's all right, mate. If you need to pop off for a minute, I'm all good. I can answer a few questions and chat away. Family first, always. Happens to me lots. Don't worry about it.
Right, yeah. Just give me 1 second. Sorry about this, everyone.
Good. All good. I'll jump into the chat and have a little pop here. Right. I see a lot of you guys are asking about the likes of Bissouma, which, I'm on note of saying publicly that I really like Yves Bissouma as a footballer, but the only thing that puts me off, and I think a lot of you guys in the chat, you've got your finger on the pulse. You guys are brilliant about stuff like this. You will have seen that the price seems to be going up every single couple of days almost around Yves Bissouma. I'd seen originally 35 million, then it's 40, and now we're pushing up towards 50. So I just think that at that price point, it's probably worth going and trying to get the likes of a Tielemans or somebody like that. I'd also seen a couple of you guys in the chat talk about a backup for Trent Alexander-Arnold. From what I've been told, and again, you guys may not recognize Steve as much, but Steve's a former BBC employee. Steve has very good contacts within the journalism world. And he's very well connected, and Steve's been very good to us about the type of stuff that he lets us know and doesn't know and things like that. So it looks like Nico Williams is nailed on to be the backup for Trent, and that there won't be another fullback coming in. What have we got? Philip said, are we supposed to rely on our midfield squad depth? Really, with Milner and Keita as backup to Thiago, Fabinho and Hendo, need to sign another midfielder? It's a fair point, Philip, because Jimmy Milner, as good as he is getting on in age, and, time waits for no man. Keita is certainly somebody who has shown that he has a track record of injuries. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, the manager seems to want to stick with him, but, to me, if the right offer came in and West Ham had been a club who had been a little bit linked to Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, I'd listen to offers. We're just talking here, Steve, about the midfield situation. So One of our guys had the super chat to say, can we really rely on the players that we have when you look at the likes of Milner, who's getting on in age, Keita, who's very injury prone? I think it's a fair point.
I don't agree. I think there's Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain was fit most of the season. Really, why he didn't get more of a game, we're not quite sure. Curtis Jones is a really good option. Milner's probably got this season left. Naby Keita, fair play. He's in and out, but I think there's certainly enough there, and that's not even mentioning Fabinho, Thiago, and Henderson, which if they can stay fit, that's going to be locked in for the season, isn't it? Near enough, unless we start playing 4-2-3-1, in which case you just need two of them. So, I'm fairly relaxed about the midfield situation. There's another couple of the younger players too, isn't there? Coming through from the 23s as well, that kind of play a deep line midfield role as well. So, I'm pretty relaxed about that. I'm a big fan of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. I'm not quite sure what's happened this season because, he's not. There were times when you might have expected him to get rotated in. There were opportunities to give him a bit more of a game, and he didn't get it. So, we're hearing, aren't we, from the Echo? I think have run a couple of pieces, or James Pearce in the Athletic talking about him and saying that he was is very much part of the plans for next season. So I'm entirely fine with that. I wouldn't be. We need to add to what we've got, not be selling. There's a bit of deadwood, sure, but I don't think that he falls into that category.
Do you think, I have a couple of things I want to ask you. Do you think we're almost pre-programmed to accept the way the club is run right now, and that we don't, without moving on players, shop in the top tier? And also, does it worry you, Steve, when you look at how well Chelsea strengthened last year and bringing in a coach in Thomas Tuchel? And fair play, Lampard did set a bit of the base there, but Thomas Tuchel came in, pulled it all together and had immediate success. And the first thing you hear is that they're looking to go out and spend again. That's what worries me. I've no doubt about the caliber of footballer that we currently have when we have, let's say, the first 15, 16. But, we do need to add a bit.
Yeah, we do. But then it comes back to what I was talking about before. We need to be adding people that, add to the quality of the first 11, or like Jota's come in and been a genuine alternative. We need to be adding people that are genuine alternatives. So, so that when the game's tight or we need a goal, Jurgen Klopp turns around to his bench and he looks at who he's got, and he actually sees people like, when Pep turns around and he sees Bernardo Silva, Gabriel Jesus, Raheem Sterling, real genuine game changers. And did you hear Sheikh Mansour the other day on telly? He was on City's TV channel, I think, saying, Aguero was good, but we'll go out and we'll get someone who can fill that spot. So they're going to go big, aren't they? We know.
I've also seen, to be fair, that Bernardo Silva and Sterling could be available for them to sell in this window.
It's interesting, that, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, they're saying Mahrez and Bernardo Silva and Raheem Sterling. I'd take any one of them. I know there's a bit of ill feeling towards Raheem Sterling for what happened. I'm
more understanding of the Sterling situation. I have to say, I try and look at this big picture. I look at where we were as a club at that moment in time. We were a steady Europa League club, Rodgers was there. We weren't where we are now, and there was no obvious sign that we're going to be where we are now. It's not like Klopp had come in and he'd done a legger. Now, I'm not saying he didn't do a couple of things wrong with the BBC interview and stuff, but I just get the feeling with Sterling, it was purely a decision made for his career and nothing else.
I think, look, every player has got a price, and at that time, we were talking about 50 million quid for a very young player that hadn't hit anything like his potential. I wanted him to stay, but it was a perfectly fair price, wasn't it? At the time,
and he's been proven fair, right, so Steve. If we look back at it, his decision proved correct.
Yeah, that's what happens in football, isn't it? And he's, would he have hit these levels at Liverpool? Yeah, it probably would. Probably. He's that good that his potential and his attitude and stuff would have taken him to this level anyway. But I mean, yeah, I have. I think people get on his back when he comes to play at Anfield because they know it affects him. He hasn't had a good game once, has he? That's mostly the reason why. Someone in the chat saying Sterling has passed his best. I just
read that and then thought to myself that's literally just coming into the prime of his career at 27.
Yeah, I don't really buy that at all. I think he's a top.
I think he's a confidence player who's just lacking in confidence. That's my personal. No, I'm not saying he's coming to Liverpool, but I'm not going to sit here with a good conscience and say he's crap because he isn't.
No, definitely not. Absolutely not. Mahrez as well. And I mean, if City want to sell, interesting thing, like somebody was saying on Five Live the other night, if they're going to sell Bernardo, going to sell Mahrez, going to sell Sterling, it's because they want to replace them with some other big players, and they don't want a really bloated squads. But then who's going to buy? Who's going to buy these kind of players off them because they're going to want massive money, and it comes back to the same conversation we've had on the podcast a few times when when people have said about letting Salah go. Who buys these players? There's no one to buy these players unless selling clubs will take a big hit or take a lot less than perhaps they would have done last year. There's no one to buy them. The PSG, Barca haven't got a penny to rub together. They're bringing in anybody they can who's on a free transfer.
Have you seen the rumoured story about Messi and the 10-year deal, by the way, with Barca?
No, what's
so
that?
Apparently they want to give Lionel Messi a 2-year contract, but give him a 10-year payment plan.
Wow.
So they basically pay him over 10 years. He plays for 2 and then heads off to Inter Miami or whatever it might be.
It's he's a special case, isn't he? There's interesting ones just coming about Martinez from Inter. I think
they need to sell, don't they? They need to free up about 70 million.
I haven't really seen those links, but that would be a good one. He's a proper number 9, isn't he? He's one of those sort of nuisance South American players who work, a Suarez-y, Aguero type. They work hard, they score a lot of goals, they're difficult to play against. He wouldn't be. I wouldn't be against that at all.
I think it's a great link to. We spoke about this as well the other day. I think it's a perfectly valid link, and it seems from their side, and I don't get how they think they're going to get this much, but Inter seem to think that they're going to get around the 70 million they need for Hakimi, which, look, with all due respect, very good player, but I don't see anybody in this climate post-COVID paying 70 million quid for Hakimi, whereas you would absolutely see that. And Lukaku's come out and said he wants to stay at Inter, so it looks like it might be one of Martinez or Hakimi that could move on, or even Nicola Barella, which is another good player.
Well, yeah, Barella, yeah. I mean, he's been linked with Liverpool, but then so's everybody, haven't they? But Hakimi's a really good player, but I think he's, as long as they can arrange the fee, I think Paris Saint-Germain want him, don't they, pretty strongly? So
Aurier wants to go back there as well, apparently, by the looks of it. Sergio, did you see, by the way, I just seen this before it came on, not Liverpool related, but I thought, bit of a slide dig, this one. Aguero's dad.
No, what's he
accused Pep Guardiola of fake tears when he spoke about Aguero at the Manchester City trophy lift. You know that famous clip that's doing the round? Now, I've got to say, it looked genuine to me.
Yeah, same.
Those tears.
Same for me. Yeah. I mean, it. I mean, it looked very much like Pep. Wasn't a massive fan of Aguero, doesn't it? I mean, he's been fit a lot and he's not played very much. When arguably he still probably could have done the job in those tight games. Played a few games at the end of the season, but yeah, I think he'll do well at Barca. I think he's got another season or two left in him. I think Spain's a good, really good option for him. We mock Barca for some of these free transfers, but if they get Depay and Aguero and Gini in, for no transfer fees, that's good business, isn't it? They've done well out of that.
It still kills me that Gini's gone. I won't lie, Steve. It still hurts.
I know.
By the way, ladies and gents, I need to ask your favour for just 1 minute. Some of you know, I'm sure you've seen it on our socials, that have challenged Mr. Rio Ferdinand with charity bet. Rio was speaking today, Steve. I don't know if you've seen this about Manchester United and the cold hard facts that they're moved ahead of Liverpool. So I asked him for a $5,000 charity bet. So please go on to our TikTok account, our Instagram account, our Twitter account, and just tag Mr. Ferdinand and make sure that he sees it, because I'm all for a charity bet, and I'm fairly confident I'd win this one. But anyway, that's just a little favour I ask you all.
I have to be confident of it. I mean, I'm confident that you'd win it as well, but
I lost it last year. I had a £500 charity bet with a very nice Manchester United fan called Andy from Twitter, and I paid up. He chose Space for Autism, which was a wonderful charity that a family member of his attends. I'm happy to pay up and did so, but let's see if Rio's actually as confident as he claims to be. Because I tell you what, $5,000's a lot more money to me than it would be to Mr. Ferdinand, but it's for charity, so I hope he accepts it, because either way, charity will win.
Yeah, definitely. It's I'm pretty confident with it. I mean, I don't know if I'm $5,000 confident, but I'm pretty confident.
So you mean you're not chipping in if I lose, Steve? That's what you're saying?
Let's talk about that. We'll talk about that.
I want to talk about Adrian for a second, because when I woke up and seen the headline, Adrian closes in on another 1-year contract, I think a little part of me died inside, Steve.
Yeah. He's not great, is he? I suspect he's a good person to have around the training ground and around the team. He looks like a good squad member, a good teammate, doesn't he? I'd sooner keep Callagher as the backup and keep Adrian there as...
I think that's the dichotomy that the club are faced with, because I think Queevy needs a loan, because, for his Ireland prospects as well, Stephen Kenny wants him to be playing more football. And this is the big problem with a young keeper, isn't it, at any Premier League club, is what do you do there to keep him happy and get him enough game time? Yeah,
I mean, the reserve goalkeeper is a strange old situation, isn't it? Who'd be a reserve goalkeeper? And there's only a couple of clubs who really have got it absolutely nailed down. United have got a genuine battle for that spot, and that leaves them with a really good backup. And they've got Romero that can't even get on the bench. Who played every game for Argentina. But then I guess the flip side to that is the stability. You want a settled, a goalkeeper and a back four. And then Chelsea as well, who've got the most expensive goalkeeper of all time, can't even get a game, and bizarrely hasn't left yet. By
the way, because he's shite.
Well, yeah, I mean, undoubtedly, but he's still good as a backup goalkeeper, isn't he? I mean, that's I'd take him as a backup if he's happy sitting on the bench for 30 games out of 38. That's fine. Absolutely fine.
I've always had a dream, and it is just a dream because he's still playing at Inter, of Handanovic. I've always had that dream of him to come in as.
I think United are going to get a good one with Tom Heaton, aren't they? United signing Tom Heaton, I think.
Yeah,
I think he
wants to push for the number 1 shirt, apparently, according to himself.
Well, he's a good goalkeeper. I mean, that's a perfect backup goalkeeper for me. Someone who is genuinely good, but is going to be quite happy just sitting on the bench. In the later years of his his career. And the issue with Adrian is that he might be happy to sit on the bench, but he isn't a great goalkeeper, is he? You know, by any stretch. That one, you know, there are a few we can all think of, but the one he ballsed up a clearance, didn't he, in the Champions League last year against Atletico, which led to, you know, their goal, and you know, it all fell apart from that. So yeah, I'd far rather keep Kelleher around and keep him as a number 2. I think that makes a lot more sense.
One of my former teammates when I was younger, and somebody who I battled at youth level for a goalkeeping position with, actually was Creevy Kelleher's under-21 Irish coach, goalkeeping coach. A guy named Dan Connor used to play at Peterborough. Excellent, much better goalkeeper than I ever was. And when you were saying earlier on about the backup goalkeeper position, I was just thinking of that one year I was sitting behind Dan because he was just better than me. But he sings his praises and said that he's the real deal. Like,
yeah, I think he looks really good. I mean, we haven't even touched on Loris Karius, have we? I mean,
the Instagram model.
Yeah, but you know, arguably, would he be a better backup than Adrian? Possibly.
I don't know, Steve. That is a tough call.
It's a pretty.
I don't know, man. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's a pretty depressing choice.
Is there anything to be said for James Milner?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it comes down to, you know, to Kelleher himself. You know, whether he wants to go out and, you know, play a bit of first team football, or whether he feels like he's happy. You know, given Alisson's injury, you know, problems, he'd probably get 10 games next season, wouldn't he? You know, given the little niggles that Ali picks up. So, yeah, so I'd be inclined to go that way.
I've left one of the big names to last because, again, just before we spoke, I don't think you've given up, I won't say hope, but you're still thinking about Jadon Sancho to some extent. Is that fair?
Yeah. It is, yeah. It just makes sense to me, and I know a couple of journos have sort of poo-pooed it this week, but it just kind of makes sense to me in that he's the only one of the kind of you know, these young superstars. He's the only one where the fee's not going to be beyond us, I think, and. You know, maybe, yeah, I'm putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5 perhaps, but, you know, a couple of journos have said, you know, Liverpool are, you know, interested. I hope they are interested. I'm sure, you know, I hope they're interested in a great many top players, but yeah, he's just one that makes sense to me. I think I just think if they were going to buy a player in the kind of the 70, 80, 90 million pound category, you know, they wouldn't get much better than him for that money.
Would you be thinking maybe, let's say Sancho was to come in for an example, would your thought process be a year on loan for Harvey Elliott with the potential to move on somebody else then the following summer and introduce Harvey back in?
Yeah, maybe that would affect. Yeah, perhaps that would affect Elliott. I'd like us to see I'd like us to try and take the Phil Foden approach with Harvey Elliott. You know, he's 19, 20 years old, Phil Foden. He's only just really had his sort of breakthrough season, hasn't he? And even now, even this season, he only started 17 games in the league. So it's been sort of softly. Harvey Elliott's 2-3 years behind Phil Foden in age. So I'd be inclined to keep Harvey Elliott around either way. I think probably.
Yeah, it was tough because when we looked like we were about to be in the Europa League, I could absolutely see the pathway for Harvey Elliott to get a lot of game time between the Europa League group stages and some of the domestic cups. But I struggle now, which is very hard because I've no doubts about him as a player, none whatsoever. No. There's so much pressure on managers these days, isn't there? Particularly when you're in and around the top 4, and we came awfully close to not making it this season. And thanks to Alisson being just the magnificent specimen that he is with that glorious header, we managed to get away in, and that's fantastic. And I think that's huge for us next season. We've so much to look forward to again now.
Yeah.
It's so difficult, mate, isn't it? Because I'm all for signing up Verge, Fabinho, Mane, Salah on new deals. They deserve them. I mean, the fact that Mohamed Salah is on 200 grand a week, I can't believe as a human being I'm saying this, but it's almost criminal compared to what he could probably get in the open market.
Oh my word. Where are we with that? I mean,
when David De Gea is on 350 grand a week.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. There's only, we love our club, don't we? But there's only so much pull, or affection that these foreign boys have, and we know the money's important. So that's why Tottenham get no good players and have to sell all their players in it, because they don't pay good money, and Arsenal the same. And it's lovely having principles and having wage structures and all that kind of thing. But it doesn't bring the best players in, does it? That's the fact. And yeah, I don't really. I've said this on the pod a few times. I don't worry about Mo Salah at all. Even if he wanted to go, I mean, who's going to buy him realistically? Like, there's no one. There's no one that can pay you'd be looking at 120, 130 million or something, wouldn't you? And there's no one that's paying that.
I would agree. I think everything is hopefully in place for a happy end here, where Mo signs, we're all happy. And I'll tell you what, any doubts, I think I've said this to you again before, and I do want to talk about Trent, by the way, before we finish up, but I think I said this to you, any small lingering doubts I had about Salah's commitment, and they were tiny, evaporated. When he scored against United, he celebrated with Alisson, and you could see exactly what it meant to him. Yeah,
definitely. I'm with you. He's a moody little so-and-so sometimes, isn't he? A couple of seasons ago, he barely celebrated a goal. It looked like he was angry all the time, but that just came out of him, didn't he? When the United goal, the fourth goal at United went in, and he looked so passionate, and I just don't see. Yeah, I
love him so much. I won't lie, Steve. I love him so
he's sensational.
Much. He's for every aspect of his humanity, everything.
Yeah, and he doesn't get half as much praise or credit as he should do, because his numbers are ridiculous. Over what's he had now, 4 or 5 years at Liverpool, and his numbers have been unbelievable every single year. He's 22 league goals again this season, and he doesn't. He's taken a few more penalties this season, hasn't he? But in general, doesn't take penalties. Doesn't.
Hang on. Joanne's one of our OGs on the channel, and it's her son's birthday today. So, Callum, happy birthday, dude, from all of us.
Happy birthday, Callum. Joanne. Happy birthday,
yeah, Joanne
Callum.
It's not an Anfield Agenda watch along until Joanne puts the onset super sticker up. It's a tradition that she's kept for age. So, Callum, man, happy birthday from all of us, dude. What a lovely mother you have there. Well done, Joanne.
Hey, listen, someone's just popped up with one of my pet topics from the podcast. What did you say about Harry Wilson? Nothing yet, but we can do.
Yeah,
I like Harry Wilson.
Let's talk Harry Wilson. I don't think he's good enough.
Harry Wilson,
it's quite simple for me.
I mean, I know that you and Jack, I think as well, aren't. You're very much in the bin him off category, aren't you?
I think he's a match of the day player for me. I mean, there's undoubted ability. I won't deny that. The guy has. But I also understand those that say until you put him in at the top level, he won't know. I do appreciate that side of it.
That's kind of my opinion. I don't. I think he's absolutely decent enough to have around at the club, and probably would rather have had him than Shaqiri at a lot of moments this season. Coming off the bench as an option. So I'm good with Harry Wilson. I mean,
what would you sell him for? What do you think his fee would be if the club decided to go that route?
I think the Euros would be quite big for him. If he has a good Euros, that might add 10 million to his price tag, or it might mean that we keep him. But if I would say he barely played in the Euros, probably you'd be looking at 10, 15 million for him, wouldn't you? I imagine, and he'd be looking at, probably Who do I want to insult? Like a Newcastle or one of the teams coming up, maybe Norwich, something like that. You go there and be a big fish in a smaller pond. But I think Mason Mount is a really good example for him, that Chelsea were forced to put him in. Him and Harry Wilson were very much on a par at Derby and that season on loan. Chelsea were forced to put Mason Mount in, and he's sensational now. So not saying that Harry Wilson would get to that level, but I just think he's probably not had the chance that he needs, I would say.
A few quick fire ones. What happens with Takumi Minamino?
Keep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think there's a really good player there. I mean, when we played Salzburg before we bought him, he was sensational, wasn't he? Really, really, really good. So I think, keep. No need to sell these players, is there?
What worries me there, Steve, is that I understood the loan. I understood the loan for a playing reason, for the style that Ralph Hasenhüttl plays with, and he scored some good goals there. So at 7.25 million, it probably is a good shout to give him a chance at that price point. Like, what are we really losing there?
I mean, we're looking at players now, aren't we? We're talking about DAKA and Rafinha, and are they drastically better than Minamino? I mean, Minamino was the star of that Salzburg team. Now DAKA's the star of the Salzburg team. It's not that much different. I think he the last game we saw him really was that Palace game, wasn't it? And it went fairly well, and then he barely played after that. So yeah, I'm okay with Minamino.
The next one I wanted to have a quick chat around was Marco Grujic. Do you think he ends up back at Porto, or do you think? And what would his fee be? What would his fee be? Which is the really interesting part for me.
Yeah, he sort of falls into the same category as Harry Wilson for me a little bit. In that when I've seen him, played a couple of League Cup games, didn't he, before he went on loan? He always seemed to pop up in pre-season and do okay.
That header against Barca, what a header!
It was a great header, wasn't it? If Marco Grujic had been at Liverpool this season, he'd have played 10 or 15 league games, wouldn't he? I reckon. Because we were short of Henderson.
Imagine him training with Fabinho as well. That's what I keep saying. Yeah. Imagine him learning.
We were short of Henderson. We were short of Fabinho in that number 6, number 6 role, and that's where he's been playing a lot the last couple of seasons. I like him. What I've seen, I like, and again, I don't really think that he's had as much of a chance as maybe he'd have hoped for.
Shaqiri, been rumored that a 6 million price tag has been put on his head, which to me is way too cheap. I mean, I'd sell him, but not for 6 million.
Yeah, I think he's a good player, but he must be not far off 30 now. I imagine
29, 30. Yeah, he's exactly in around that.
And yeah, you're probably right. He's worth more than £6 million, but there's a certain point in a player's career when you want to let them play, and you've got to kind of arrange a fee that is that lets the right clubs it's affordable for the right club. So I guess him and Origi probably will go for whatever somebody will pay for them. I think we've held on to Shaqiri and Origi for 2 years now, probably holding out for good money, and it hasn't really come. So yeah, they're probably at the point where you just say, all right, we're just open to offers. Off you go.
And last up, we got to talk about poor old Trent. I mean, God Almighty, how unlucky can the lad be?
I'm gutted for him. absolutely gutted for him, because you could tell in that game last night. I watched quite a bit of it, and you could tell that he was just, really wanting to impress. I thought he did all right, and yeah, absolutely gutted for him. And some people have been saying about, oh, we'll come back and he'll get a pre-season and he'll be better for next year. But these lads are human as well, aren't they? And missing out on that kind of thing does have an impact. And he's a football fan, isn't he? And he'll have been absolutely desperate to go. I mean, I guess the silver lining is it's only 6 weeks. It's not a really long term one. And yeah, it's preferable to him being left out and having a pre-season that way. So just gutted for him though. Absolutely gutted.
Yeah, I watched the first half hour of the game before I went on and did my stream last night, and as you said, he looked like he really wanted to put down a marker, and I had seen some beautiful deep crosses he was putting in, and he was flying down that right hand side. I mean, 6 weeks coincidentally is about as long as he'll get from Liverpool for his holidays. Yeah. So, hopefully he does get a full chance to rest up, but I'm sure the physios will give him a rehabilitation plan. But yeah, I mean, it sucks from it, really, really does. And he'd forced his way back into Southgate's reckoning, and Southgate needs to get credit for one. I mean, I don't want to give away too much of what you've told me about other stuff, but for one, backing up his words, he wanted Trent to up his game. Trent upped his game, and he was rewarded with a place in the squad. And to be fair, it's not down to Gareth Southgate that Trent picked up the injury. It's just bad luck.
Yeah, 100%. It's just gutted for him, but I'm actually getting a bit more excited about the Euros now. It's only, what is it, like 10, 11 days away. Fans in stadiums, some fans in stadiums. It's going to be good fun. And look, I mean, you look at the options England have got. I was saying last night to a friend, and I think I put it on Twitter, what a generation of talent we've got. You look at these young lads: Trent, Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho. All under 22, all under 21, 22.
You can't even get likes of Maddison into the squad.
Yeah, Maddison, Ben Chilwell, Reece James, who aren't too much older. Even guys like Harry Kane are only 27, 28. So
I'm going to call it now, by the way, as a neutral. Jordan Pickford is going to end your Euro dreams.
Oh, goodness me. He is awful, isn't he? My word.
He wants to be a commanding keeper when he's a very good shot stopper, but he's not the commanding keeper that he tries to be.
No, and people think he's like, where this myth has come from that he's really good with his feet is absolutely beyond me. He isn't. Like, compared to Edison and Alisson, Jordan Pickford is, bang average with his feet as well. So, yeah, I mean, the worrying thing is he's probably, the best of a bad bunch. I like Sam Johnston at West Brom, but he's probably the best of a bad bunch. And, just hoping Harry Maguire gets fit, because he's, Gomez aside, he's England's best defender. So at least with Maguire in the side, he might get a bit of protection. But I think he'll play 3 at the back.
It certainly gets shade from the sunlight with Maguire's massive noggin. He won't need to wear a baseball cap. Sorry, Harry, I didn't mean that.
Dear.
I did. So how you fancy, before I let you go, how you fancy in England for the Euros? How far are you going?
Oh, no. And we definitely won't win it. No chance. But I think, like a respectable semi-final or heroic quarter-final would be fine.
So the usual.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's been the case since Italia 90. That's what we've done. I mean, even in Italia 90, which was heroic as well, we only got to the semi-final. So, every single tournament, bar a couple, it's been a heroic battle to the quarters or semis, and then a heartbreaking defeat. And so that's probably what I expect this time as well.
There you go. Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure, dude. Thank you so much. I mean, we've been chatting 55 minutes. It's absolutely flown by.
Absolutely. Yeah, good fun.
We will be back doing this more often, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to you guys for watching. Don't forget the subscribe button. Drop a like on the video. If you want to give Steve a follow, it's @BlandSteve on Twitter. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah.
Exactly as it shows just underneath his image there, ladies and gents. But look, thank you, Steve, and say hello to your dog for me. Give him a little scratch, a little tickle on the belly for me.
Yeah, you can see him. He's having like a little lie down now.
He's much more chilled now. He's calmed. He was just nervous about the pod, mate, I think, or about the stream. I think that was it.
Yeah. Thanks,
ladies and gents, we will talk to you soon. Thank you so much. Take care and bye-bye.